In 1939, when the Germans invaded Poland, Jolik, also known as Izzy Arbeiter, was a 15-year-old teenager living with his family in the city of Plock, about 75 miles northwest of Warsaw. Hannah, also known as Anna Baltha, was a 14-year-old living with her family in Lodz, about the same distance southwest of Warsaw. In 1941, they were relocated with their families to Starokowice, a new industrial town, and its adjoining old town of Wiesbrnik, 95 miles due south of Warsaw in the Radom district. At first, they were both assigned by the Jewish Council to work at the local Gestapo headquarters, where they were under the watchful eye of Walter Becker, the Gestapo chief.
We come from two different cities. I come from Plock, she comes from Lodz. Two different cities, but we were sent out, evacuated from those cities, and into the same place, which called Starokowice. In order to get food or ration cards, because food was ration, in order to get a ration card, you had to work. If you didn't work, you didn't get no food. You were useless. Because we were at the beginning with the declaration of the final solution of the Jewish problem, we were to be exterminated anyways, one way or the other. So if the only way we were allowed to live by performing work for the Germans. And if you didn't work, you didn't get no food, and you were useless. So in order to get food, you had to go to work. So in every city was a community council, a Jewish community council. And we used to go to the Jewish, it was called the Jewish Gemeinde.
The Jewish Gemeinde.
And so we went to the Jewish Gemeinde and registered for work. When I came there, I think she was already in Starokowice. I think they came before or just about the same time. But I went to the Jewish committee and said I want to work so I can get some some ration card. And they sent me to work for the Gestapo. Now, I was not a Gestapo agent. My work in the Gestapo was the dirty work. I had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, shine the officers' shoes. They put out their shoes in front of the door in the evening. I had to shine the shoes, so when the officers get up in the morning, their shoes were shined. In the winter, when they left their rooms, I had to go in, clean out the oven. There was no central heating. It was the rooms were heated with coal, with wood and coal. And so my job was to clean out the ovens, bring in fresh coals and wood and heat the place, and do chores in the summer. Yeah, and every day I had to clean the outdoor. They had an outdoor that I had to clean it every day. Whether it was used or not, I had to clean it. In the summer, there was a garden. I had to work in the garden and again clean the outdoors and all the things that were needed around in the offices. Anna was also sent by the Jewish Gemeinde to work in the kitchen. Her job was cleaning up in the kitchen and also cleaning up the rooms in the rooms to keep the rooms clean. And so when I came there to work, and so that's what I met her. But we didn't know each other before, and this is just where we met.
Occasionally, Becker would subject Izzy to terrible beatings if he felt Izzy had failed in some way to perform his appointed tasks. After some time, Becker engaged in the dreaded selection process of all the Jews in Starokowice. Anna lost her whole family, her mother and sisters. Izzy lost his parents and his youngest brother. His oldest brother, Elik, escaped east to the Soviet Union, never to be heard from again. Izzy and his other younger brother, Aaron, and other older brother, Matek, also known as Mac, remained alive. Anna continued her kitchen work for the Gestapo. Izzy and his brothers were assigned to work in the ammunition factory that was important to the German war effort. They were also assigned to live in the slave labor barracks where the abominable living conditions resulted in a typhoid epidemic in late 1942 and early 1943. The official Nazi policy at that time was to kill anybody who was too sick to work. Izzy was one of those too sick to work and assigned to the quarantine barrack.
And when somebody got sick, now the Germans set up one barrack, which was called the infirmary. And the sick people were selected out from the barracks that were living and put in that barrack, which was called the quarantine, the sick bed. And there it was to either to recover, to get well, or to die. Um, there was no doctor in the camps. There was no medicine.
Nothing.
There was a doctor, a friend of mine that went to school together with me. He was a barber, and so in the camp he was made the doctor. What kind of a doctor was he? He was giving a thermometer, and he came in every day into that quarantine and measured the temperature. You know, typhoid is the temperature gets to a high point, and then either it kills the patient, or after it gets over the crisis, the temperature starts getting down, and he starts to recovering. And I remember this friend of mine who was the doctor was handing around the thermometer. So if somebody wasn't sick, he had to get sick, because he took the thermometer from one, didn't even clean it, didn't even wash it, and give it to the next one to put it in his mouth. And I remember he came over to my bunk. There were 3-decker bunks. I was on the top. And I remember he came over and he gave me the thermometer, and I was so weak and so sick at the time that I said to him, "Oh, don't bother me. I don't want to measure." I was weak and sick, and I just didn't take the thermometer from him. That same day, and then whenever the barrack filled up, the Germans then would take out the people and liquidate them, take them to the nearby woods and kill them. That same night, in the middle of the night, the lights went on, and you heard the screaming, "Out, out, everybody out." And as the people that were closer to the door started to walk down, get down from their bunks and run to the door out, they were staying, the chief of the Gestapo and the camp commandant, staying on each side of the door, and as the people were running out, they were shooting the people coming out through the door. What happened then to me, I don't know. Where I was during the day so weak and so sick that I couldn't even pick up the thermometer.
Izzy realized that the Gestapo chief, Walter Becker, was standing on one side of the door as the sick Jews came out, and the camp commandant, Willie Althoff, was standing on the other. They were shooting everybody as they came out. Becker had no compunction to shoot healthy Jews on the spot if they were doing something he didn't like. Althoff was worse. He had a reputation for extreme unprovoked cruelty. Both of them, like the infamous commandant in Schindler's List, were incredibly corrupt, extorting the Jews under their control for the few valuables that they had somehow retained. Izzy, sick as he was, realized that going out that door meant certain death.
All of a sudden, I got the strength and the wisdom to act and to do whatever, to do the right thing. I remember going down from the bunk, looking in the direction of the door where the people were running out, and seeing what's happening there, that people are being shot. I said to myself, no, I'm not going there. If they want to kill me, let them come in and kill me in here. People will still keep running out. This is the door. Remember, picture the room just like this room, for instance. Here is the door. My bunk was at the end of the room, and in the back, and there was windows, small windows, regular windows, boarded up. And I was just going back, and I said, I'm not going out there, but looking at more people coming out, and I said, let me try and take a chance here. I opened up the window. I don't know where I got that strength to open up the window. I opened up the window, and as I tried to get out through the window, I hear somebody staying there and says, "Stop," in German, "Halt, stop, or I'll shoot." And I said, don't shoot, I'm going back. And I put my head, I was only halfway out. And I went back in and staying there. I didn't move, I was just staying there.
After they killed everybody who could make it off their bunks and out the door, Becker and Althoff came into the barrack. shooting those who were too sick to get out of their bunks. Izzy understood this was his last chance to survive. He looked out the back window again and saw that the guard was gone. He threw himself out the window and began making his way back to barrack number 3, evading the searchlight from the tower and being shot. He finally made it, but others who tried the same thing were all shot.
And I, in the meantime, got up and got through the back, not through the front, again through the back of that barrack 3, knocked in the window there, and I said to open up the window. That mean, and a friend of mine there, by the name of Jack Kleiman, said, Izzy Arbeiter is here. Let's open up, let's bring him in. They opened up the window, they pulled me in. This friend of mine put me underneath him, the little straw sack. He put the straw sack on top of me and he put himself on the straw sack. The others that were around were shot. One that was shot through the head. They followed the blood drops. They followed where he went. They took him out and they killed him. Now after they came into the barrack 5 and the infirmary and killed everybody that was there. After they were through, they knew that somebody escaped. And so they went around into the barracks with the well people that were not sick. And they said, where there is some people that escaped from the quarantine. We know they're someplace. We're giving you 5 minutes. If you don't deliver them, we'll go and find. And if we find them in the barrack, we find them, we'll take out 25 people and shoot them together with him. Every barrack had what was called an older, the one that was in charge, or a capo that was in charge of the barrack. The name of that barrack was Guns. I remember the name. And the question now, what are they going to do with me?
Once again, Izzy's life was on the line. If the Jewish leader in Barrack 3 gave him up, he was a dead man. But Izzy had close friends in the barrack, including one, Jack Kleiman, who gave the Jewish leader a choice.
To deliver, to put me out. This man, Jack Kleiman, this friend of mine, went down from the bunk and went over to Gans and said, look, you know what the situation is. They gave you 5 minutes. You know what's going to happen. You're going to die one way or the other. So have your choice. Which way do you want to die? If they come in and you tell them that Izzy Arbeiter is here is hiding and you will deliver him, they'll take him out, they'll kill him, and afterwards will kill you. If they come in and look for him and find him because you didn't deliver him, you'll be the first one that they're going to kill. So you have 2 choices. You're going to die either way. Have your choice. But if you tell them that he's not here, and if they don't find him, you might have a chance to live. And that's what happened. They came in and they said, where is there? Somebody came in here, and that little man, he was a short little man, and said, no, there's nobody here. Nobody came in here. They started to look around in a few bunks. Fortunately, they didn't go through the whole barrack. They just looked in a few bunks and they left. And this friend of mine was laying on a straw sack on top of me, hiding me. And that was in the camp. We were working 2 shifts, 2 12-hour shifts in the ammunition factory. My brothers, my 2 brothers were there. They were working the night shift when that took place. After that, I fell asleep. I was sleeping. But then in the morning, when the night shift came back from the ammunition factory, my brother was asking, what happened, where is Izzy? And they said Izzy was killed with all the rest over there in Barrack 5. And I could just hear my brother crying, And in my sleep, I could hear this. And in a very weak voice, I just said, Mac, I'm all right, I'm here. And that was that done during the day. It didn't take long after that. During the day, there was in the camp were Jewish police.
After the night of sheer terror, a Jewish policeman, Abraham, told Izzy he had to go back to the quarantine barrack. Izzy was terrified at the prospect. but Abraham swore he would protect him and make sure he received the food he needed to recover from the epidemic. At this point, Anna came to Izzy's rescue.
Now came in the girl that I was working together in that for the Gestapo, and she was working in the kitchen. And again, we were just girl. We just we just knew it. Just knew it, Ajay. She was working in the kitchen, and when she found out about me, what happened? She stole food from the kitchen and brought it. She couldn't go into the men's camp because it was against law, but there was the wire, the fence, and she brought the food to the wires, put it under the wire, and brother was waiting in the distance, and then he went over. She was watching, but there was no guards around. Put it under the wire, and then my brother picked it up and brought it to me. And of course, having the food now, she risked her life to bring the food, to steal and bring the food for me. And so now getting the food from her, and what I was getting the ration, I was getting stronger and healthier and better, and the food was coming from her every day.
Mac came into the wires, and I was in the barrack already. One girl comes in, she says, Hanke, they used to call me Hanke. A man wants to see you. I go out, his brother. He knew that I was working with him. And he asked me, can you help him? Can you help him get some food, you know. But I said, one day I picked up something from the barrack. I brought it in and make that warm. I went up there to that barrack, you know. That time you could go up. And I came in, and they were laying lice all over him. You know, he was so sick. He had the typhoid. I went up and I took the blanket and I shaked it, you know, with the only, you know.
Covered with lice.
With lice?
We didn't have lice, we were covered with lice.
And I took that and I shaked it. As if a little lice went on me, I came out and I was shaking. And I brought him the food. I just had the pity. You know, I know him. He worked with me. I saw his parents always go by, you know. It's a small little Starchowice, but not a big, you know, town, a little, you know.
So that helped.
And I just had pity on him. I saw, oh my gosh, a nice boy. He has a nice family too. He saw my mother, my sisters, you know, working with us. And just like this, afterward, he used to come in, before he used to come into the barrack, just look at to talk to me, you know, because he knew me just a little bit, nothing. So just what I helped him, I had pity.
Before Izzy fully recovered, his brothers learned that another selection was going to take place of the sick. So his brothers carried him on their shoulders to the night shift at the ammo factory and convinced a Polish foreman to let him stay. His brothers promised to produce Izzy's work quota for the shift. When they all returned the next morning, they learned that, in fact, the selection had taken place, and those too sick to walk or run were shot. Anna continued to risk her life bringing Izzy food.
Mac, you know, his brother, always he couldn't come in. He didn't come into our camp. But the wife and the girls told me to go out. I talked to him, he says, Hanke, do me a favor. Go keep an eye on Izzy. He's so weak, he's so this, you know, just see but you can cook up something or to bring it out, you know. But I went up a few times where he was there, and I did it. And by the end already, before we left the camp in Starchowice, he comes in with a bundle, and he says, you know, I see he wants to see me. He brings me a bread and some, you know, other things. And I said, oh, that's very nice. You didn't have to. My brother sent me to give it to you because you were nice enough to help me out. I said, that's all right. I didn't mind, I said. He, you know, he brought in the bundle. I gave it to him, you know. He gave it to me. I took it, you know, with that. And that's what we became a little bit, you know, friendly.
Near the end of 1944, the Nazis decided to close down the slave labor camps in Starkowice. They transferred Izzy and Anna, along with the rest of the workers, to Auschwitz. In a quirk of fate, because they were classified as useful labor, they were not marked for immediate death, unlike the Hungarian Jews who began arriving at Auschwitz at the same time. They were, however, stripped naked, showered, had their heads shaved, tattooed, and assigned to their work details. The men and women were shipped in separate boxcars. The especially insanely crowded conditions caused numerous deaths. Nobody knew who survived the transfer or didn't, but Izzy learned Anna had survived and got in touch with her.
But when I came into Auschwitz, I had nothing. I had no shoes, no nothing, not enough food and not nothing. And some guys used to work there on the construction. What was this? They came from your camp there, on the Rollwagen.
People from the Rollwagen?
Yeah. And near the window, before we were ready to go out on the commando in Auschwitz, somebody opened the window, he was there and gave a little paper. And that's why a little paper from him. I found a cousin here. You need something, I can help you. Oh, I said, that's nice. And I just said to the guy, just tell him, Arbeiter, that's just, maybe he can send me a pair of shoes. I had no shoes in Auschwitz, just rags, to put the rags, in the winter. He did. A couple weeks ago, the guy comes again, and he sent some shoes. Shoes like my grandfather used to wear. But I was happy. At least my feet were dry, with this. And just, I know you a little, I know, 14 years, what I could do. Your head was for a boy or for food. Yeah, that was very nice, and this, very nice, that's all. Yeah. Okay.
As the Red Army approached, the Nazis began closing down the death camp at Auschwitz and shipping west the slave laborers still of some potential use like Izzy and Anna. Anna was part of the death march of women from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen, a hell on earth, until she and the camp were finally liberated by the British in 1945. After liberation, she heard that Izzy had also survived and that he was coming to see her.
We from Auschwitz, we walked for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. We had no trains, no nothing. In the middle of the winter, and we were walking the march. That's why like a dead march. A lot of people died. We didn't get no food. And in the evenings got dark. They took us into the farmers, where the cows, where the horses, we were sleeping, and they were watching us. And in the morning, we get up and we walk again. We walked till maybe, about 2 weeks. 2 weeks we got trains, open trains in the middle of the winter. They were not covered. There's snow coming down. It's
like the coal wagons.
Yeah, and we came in to Germany, to Bergen-Belsen. They took us into Bergen-Belsen. I went to Bergen-Belsen. Half of the people died from, no food. We used to take the ice and put it in the mouth to eat. A lot of my friends, a few girls got shot in the back. They couldn't even walk, They left them in the middle of the roads too. And I came into Auschwitz. I came into Bergen-Belsen. That's all. And I didn't see him nothing from there. We were in Bergen-Belsen a year to 45, right? In Bergen-Belsen.
Well, at 44 to 45, but it was only about 3 months.
3 months.
November.
Yeah, something like that.
Till April, like December.
That's all.
4 months.
Just like this, I'm walking out from the barrack, I see something wrong, in Bergen-Belsen. I see a lot of ammunition, I see the helmet, Germans' clothes, with that. We were right near the barrack mine. And one of my friends said, don't go out, there's something wrong, don't go out. And maybe 10 minutes later, who comes in? The British came in, knocked down the wires. In Bergen-Belsen, we had no wires. They were not electric like in Auschwitz. They knocked down the wires, and they came in, the British. We stayed for that. I didn't know what happened to him, to his brothers, nothing. I didn't, We were in the camp too, working, go out and go in, we were working, that's all. But 2 weeks after the liberation, 2 sisters from that little town, I know them. They used to live not far from our street where we used to be. And she calls me and she says, Hank, I got the gas. I said, yeah? Oh, that's very nice. From who? Maybe a sister, maybe somebody from the family. She says, no, guess what? She's home 500 miles away in Kassel, in Germany. Arbeiter asked for you. He said he's coming to Bergen-Belsen. I said, yeah? Did he pull through? I said, oh, that's very nice. That's very nice. I didn't believe it. He's alive, but that's, you know. 2 weeks maybe went by, another boy comes by, and he says, guess what? I see Arbeiter met another fella. He's a friend from his city. He's coming to Bergen-Belsen. I said, oh, that's nice. He's alive. I said, that's all. And a couple days later, who knocks in the door? We 5 girls in the barrack. Their barracks were in Bergen-Belsen. When we got liberated, we used to live in the barracks where the Germans used to live.
From Auschwitz, Izzy was sent to work in a quarry near the German town of Taufingen. Many of his fellow slave laborers died from the strain of the work in the quarry and were buried in a mass grave. But Izzy survived and was liberated by the French on his actual 20th birthday. At first, Izzy was numb. And then everything that had happened to him hit like a ton of bricks.
What happened was that after the liberation, of course, the first couple of weeks, it was I was numb. I didn't realize yet what happened here. It was kind of strange. But then one day I broke down, terrible, cried and screamed, "Who am I? What am I doing here? Where am I going to go?
Nobody to go, nobody to ask.
What is going to be my life? Is this going to be my life living?" We were placed after the liberation with German families. They had to take care of us. And I said, "This is going to be my life?" And I said, "No, I'm going to leave. I'm leaving there, and I'm going out look for maybe some members of my family have survived." And so I went to the first town, was in a big city in Stuttgart. On the way, I took a motorcycle from a German, from a Nazi, traveled, but I didn't go very far because I was stopped by the MPs, military police, arrested. "Who are you?" The war was still on in different parts, and here you're riding on a motorcycle. At that time, it was only the military personnel or officers or whoever was involved from the Allied forces that had transportation. And here you're riding on a motorcycle. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And so I was brought into the military intelligence of Stuttgart and interrogated by 2 officers. And they quite, "Who are you? Where you going? Where you get the motorcycle?" And I just showed them my number and told them the truth, what it is. I was just liberated from my camp, and I'm out looking for members for some of my family. They kept me there for most of the day, just kept asking me questions. I kept repeating the same thing. That's all I knew. Finally, they left, and an officer came in, while the others were dressed in combat, in MP, the regular combat dress. This man was a high-ranking officer. He was wearing a jacket, an Eisenhower jacket, and he had. At that time, I didn't know what the rank yet, but he must have been a high-ranking officer in General Eisenhower's headquarters. He came in and he sat down now, and he started to ask me all over again, "Who are you?" The same thing, and I kept repeating the same thing. After a while, he says, "I believe you."
The officer took Izzy with him. He offered him a shower, clean clothes, dinner on a table covered by a white tablecloth, and travel papers authorizing Izzy to get protection, gas, and food wherever he went. In Stuttgart, Izzy saw lists of displaced persons, including the names of his 2 brothers, one nearby in Munich and the other in Italy. At the same time, he heard from a girl who had been in Bergen-Belsen that Anna was still alive.
In the meantime, I started to realize what that girl told me in the DP camp about her, and I says, that's wrong. The least I could do is go to Bergen-Belsen and say thank you to the girl that saved my life, that helped me. And there was nothing else to do. I had no appointment, no business appointments, and I had the motorcycle and paper, so I took and just traveled, went to Bergen-Belsen. A friend of mine there says, find out where I'm going, says, can I ride with you? I said, sure, you can ride with me. So anyways, I came into the Bergen-Belsen. Their camp was still closed there. You know, there were 4 zones of occupation. The American, British, French. The American
But
was the best,
British.
was open. The American zone was just like America. The British, they were still locked up in a camp, not allowed to leave because, you know, they were afraid of the mistreating of the Germans. Anyways, I came in the camp and I found it. I came in there and there was a room that wasn't bigger than this room here. And there were
Half
5
this
girls
way.
living
And they
in
were
that room. They had bunks.
banks.
5
The
girls
Germans used to
living
sleep
in that room. So I came
Yeah.
in the morning. There's nothing. You can't even get a cup of coffee.
Nothing.
Finally, I got there and I brought coffee. And then during the day and the afternoon, people were walking around the camp, you know, walking.
Izzy decided to ask Anna if she would like to take a walk. Anna explained that among the 5 girls in her barrack, there was only 1 pair of shoes, and they took turns wearing them. That day wasn't her day.
So I says, okay, which one is the girl that owns the shoes? To imagine 5 girls, 1 pair
Every
of shoes.
day. I was even gonna. I used to go,
One
not with
pair
him,
wears
but
every-
no shoes in the camp.
Same size where fits
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
So I asked which girl is this. They showed me. I went over. I begged her. I bribed her. She gave her the shoes. We went down for a walk, and I ride on the motorcycle. Of course, it was a novice. I mean, who is this man here with a motorcycle? Okay. Then came the evening.
That evening, Izzy needed a place to stay. The oldest girl in the barrack didn't trust him to stay in the barrack with Anna and the rest of the girls. She finally agreed to let him stay on condition that he sleep on the floor.
And finally, but they had a lengthy conversation, a lengthy discussion, negotiations, and they decided that I will sleep on the bare floor, on the flare boots on the floor, but under one condition, that she will sit and watch me all night. I said, look, I slept on bare floors for 5 years. One more night isn't gonna kill me. So I was sleeping on the floor. She took a chair, put a chair near my head, and sitting on that chair the whole night and watching me, that I shouldn't move. Thank God I had a strong blood that I didn't move.
One night on the floor was enough for Izzy. The next day he made Anna an offer.
The next day in the morning, I says, that's not for me here. I'm going
You
back to
still
the
live
American
like
zone.
here.
So I says to her, would you, yeah, this is in the American zone, is much better, much freer, and it's open. Would you like, I can take you, if you want to go back, I can take you with me. She says, yeah, I'll go. And so we came back, and of course it was just boy, girl, we didn't know each other.
Not one day, you know. Yeah.
No,
No, I went in Bergen-Belsen.
on
I
the
did.
Bergen-Belsen, not the most, but
Oh,
back,
oh no, Beck, no. Beck, he was
Beck?
like a gentleman. We went on a train.
back.
Back in Stuttgart, another pair of shoes, and what do you know, one thing led to another over the next year.
Then we came in Germany, and she got a room, and again it was, well, you know, we just knew each other.
We never
briefly.
had a date. Never had a date.
The only date we
One
had
date,
when we
go
walked
down from the barrack
in Bergen-Belsen.
and walk with the shoes, you know.
The
what
shoes
he,
that she borrowed. Then I had to buy her
tucked me in.
buy a pair of shoes for her so she can travel. She can travel without shoes. So I had to buy a pair of shoes for her. And so then she was living in, and I was living in, and the beginning was nothing.
He
Then
took-
we used to see each other a little more often, and you know, and that's how it developed. You know, boy, girl, seeing a little more often. Then we started to date. That was 45. Finally, in 46, I got back on both. I got down on both of my knees, not on one. I asked her to marry me. She says, of course. She said yes. And in August 1st, 1946, we got
We got married.
We didn't have didn't have money to buy a ring.
Not even a ring,
See
nothing.
these rings? So I went in Germany, in Tübingen, there was a jewelry store. And that was, gold was still off the market.
Yeah.
And I said to the woman, there was a little, nice little woman, she says, look, we're getting married and we don't have any rings. She says, after a while, she looked at us and said, okay, she said, I'll make you 2 rings. And she made these 2 rings for us, didn't even want to take any money. And so we got the wedding bands.
Those are the rings.